Guys, we're here. Another episode of It's Show Business with friends, compatriots, Jamie Flam and Vanessa Ragland from Dynasty Typewriter.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah. So should we maybe
Thanks for calling us compatriots.
Yeah.
It was a strange word choice.
I
but
liked it.
I feel good about it.
Yeah. Makes me want to wear a pin or a badge.
Or some sort of Civil War reenactment.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying.
Right,
a chevron,
I love using the word chevron on in a sentence that's not about the gas station.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
How often does that come up for you guys?
Not often enough.
No, but I just when people say it, I'm like, yes.
I had no idea what that meant. And then recently I did a search for the word chevron. I was like, chevron is just the symbol
Yeah.
of a Chevron gas station.
You know what
Yeah.
I tried to figure out? Chevrolet and Chevy. Two different kinds of cars?
No,
Same car.
Only kind that gets a nickname like that.
a Chevy. That's got to not be true.
It felt
A
true.
Lambo.
That's not. That's like a Reddit nickname. That's not like a.
I mean, no, it's pretty hip hop, but
And, well, I guess Beamer.
Beamer, yeah.
So it's
Oh,
not true.
Beamer.
But I feel like people say Chevy as if they're saying Chevrolet.
People say Puge.
Puge.
For a Pugo? Pugo? Is that a car?
A Puge.
A Pugo?
Yeah, you heard it here first.
Getting
A Chevrolet is a
Puge.
mouthful, though. That's a
It
lot.
is. It's a long one.
Is a Chevrolet and a Chevron related?
No, just the Chev sound.
But
I mean, maybe the roots. I don't know.
I bet
You're a car
Chevrolet.
guy.
I don't know.
You a Chevy head? Chevy
Not a
head?
Chevy head. A bit, not so much into American cars. Although that Tesla's growing on me.
It had to grow on you. You weren't just out the gate.
No,
Into it?
What got you?
it just looks so nice. And I took it for a drive, and it was really, really, really
Smooth.
fun. It's really smooth. But
So quiet.
I love my Prius. I love that I can throw it into any space and nobody I don't care if someone dings it. I don't care anything
It's
happens.
a disposable car.
It's a disposable car.
That's a.
As a garbage
Prius
truck
right
hits it right now.
As the garbage can truck rams right into my car.
You don't even mind.
Yeah.
You just keep podcasting.
Yeah. Well, we're at Vanessa's apartment, which
Yeah.
is beautiful.
Right in the middle of the sanitation district.
It is kind of like you have a full roundabout. Not many apartments do you get 4 exterior walls.
Oh yeah, true. We're up on a little bit of a. Man just said you're on the terrace here. Mm-hmm. That guy that was over.
Yeah.
And the street is got that in the name. I don't want to give it away.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's all.
So this podcast, we talk about show business and the business behind show business, and also about a lot of things with artists. They have, questions or just never really address things like retirement or investing. And we kind of use those two prongs to just veer off into different places.
We
and-
can probably do one of those prongs, but
Which one?
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
just talking, but
we-
less about retirement and stuff.
We already have a show business history, us three, with Dynasty and the early days, and watching you guys grow it so well was so fun, and it was just a shell of a building that turned into this magical place.
It is.
It's been such a dream.
Yeah.
been a year and a half and
More.
a year and 7 months.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Maybe we should tell them what the Dynasty Typewriter is.
Oh yeah.
I think that's smart.
A theater in Los Angeles' historic Westlake district.
I think that's it. Yeah, it's a 200-seat theater on Wilshire Boulevard in a building that was built in 1926. And we moved in 17 months ago.
Yeah.
No, 19 months.
19 months ago, and then shows started.
19 months. Wow.
Well, technically, the lease was signed in November
Yeah.
Yeah.
of 2017.
Wow.
Crazy.
And we started doing shows January 1st, 2018. And yeah, but it's been a thrilling ride, and it's growing quickly, and it's exciting, and
It's made us grow a lot as people.
we've learned a lot, and still have a lot to learn about business.
I think we don't have anything else to learn.
We're done. Yeah.
Yeah. But it so quickly became one of the marquee venues in LA, which is a testament to everything you guys are doing. It's so fun.
Thanks.
Well, I think it's that classic tale of it seems like we're overnight success, but
Right.
both of us have been working so hard for
Yeah.
over a decade, much more than that, in comedy and performing and learning the ins and outs. So
Yeah.
we didn't just have a dream and open it up, and it was an instant success. It was
Yeah.
years of relationship building and
lots of luck.
Luck as well, for sure.
Yeah.
The biggest luck is that we believed in ourselves, but we have been so lucky to instantly meet people like you who just kind of fell into our lap. And, you put out, we're kind of hippies, but you put out that positive energy, and like the right people have just from day one started, and there's been plenty of wrong people. But
it's filtering,
But yeah, we've been learning the filtering a little bit better. And I think that we both have pretty good instincts about vibe and stuff.
Yeah.
And
rarely does it change. Like when you feel the vibe, you're like, I think we're all nice people and we give people a chance, but like it's hard to adjust that, especially in small companies, like 10 people, 2 people culture off.
Yeah.
That's 20% of your culture, like out the window.
And that's math.
And podcast over. Thanks for coming.
It's good to nail it, It
is, totally, yeah. But I mean, like with the Comedy Bunker, like I learned so much from you guys in terms of like vibe and energy and like the small details. And like, you remember the early days when at the Dynasty when Todd Glass came over and he's like, we have to do like paper under the pizza and like oregano and like close the gate, like stop talking, and all those like little things like make such a difference, like to run a good show.
He's such a master at that, and it's such a good lesson in remembering that like what you actually pay for things is nothing compared to how you present them. Like you can make something priceless by just caring about it,
right?
And I think he's a great example of that, and I feel like we've gotten to kind of like approach the space that way, and just being super detail obsessed about how does it feel. This is the loudest brew of coffee that's ever been made.
Pointed that out.
It's like, is it exploding in there?
It's a Mr. Coffee.
Sounds bad. Oh no, it's one of those nice Italian ones.
I mean, sorry for those who can't see it.
Yeah.
It's your coffee.
It's a La Marazza.
Yeah,
something Italian. Yeah.
That model is a lot of money, and you pay for the hissing and burping you hear.
Yeah, well, it's actually an off-brand Mr. Coffee, so you pay for the Mister.
Just a coffee.
Coffee.
It's just a coffee. Exactly.
Bro coffee.
Yeah, yeah. But I feel like it makes those experiences magical because you guys are all about those like magical experiences. Like when you take care of the details and people feel they're somewhere special, and like sometimes it's as simple as like cleaning up and like moving objects out of their way and like making like clean sight lines and just like feeling like they're in a special place. And
I think that's been big with our staff, who 80% of those people that now work for us officially started out as just people coming to the venue and then saying like, I'd love to volunteer here.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, been a real key to making our evenings go well, is to have people that is like full of love for the space.
And having like soldiers, like people who you show them what your intentions are and they execute without like a lot of oversight. That's so key.
Yeah, and I'm sure Comedy Bunker is like, you're the heart of it. Like that will always emanate through everything. And so I think the fact that Vanessa and I are there still most nights, and that, I think the feedback we get the most through all of the reviews on Google and Yelp is how lovely our staff is. And it doesn't take much. It is just, and it goes against, the kind of tropes of comedy clubs, which is oftentimes you have security people like, it's like a cattle call and just...
Or the just general too cool for school or like insider vibe.
Right.
Where it's like, this is our secret clubhouse. I feel like there's comedy clubs and then there's improv spaces where the kind of aspirational vibe is to be one of the insiders.
Right.
And I think we want everyone that walks in to feel
totally,
welcome.
Yeah, there's a more bouncer feel to those places.
Yeah.
But I mean, you were at the Hollywood Improv for many years. It's warranted, right? There's drunk people, unruly.
It is a completely different... And yeah, as we get into that more, we see like, people being drunk, in the few nights that we do have a temporary liquor license. And we've been so lucky that we're still, I think, attracting an audience that's not... Actually, I just remember that on our first weekend with Alana Glazer, and it hasn't happened since.
But even that was a pretty polite approach. We had a drunken woman who did need to vomit, and she vomited right into her boots that she took off first. Yeah. So that's a very Dynasty barf, I feel like.
Totally, yeah.
But that is all to say. No, I understand more like when you have a crowd full of people that are required to drink.
Yeah.
you
That's
do
such a
have to
weird-
get people in
By
and
the
out.
way, that's
Yeah.
so weird.
Yeah,
When you
you
say
were-
it like that, required
Yeah,
to
I
drink.
never thought about that.
You're required to be fucked up.
Yeah, well,
Or you can have water.
You can have water,
Yeah.
but
But really forcefully encouraged to have.
Yeah, the margins on the alcohol are much better.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You need to prevent people from recording and that with the phone things. I mean, improv recently went full yonder,
Oh,
I
yeah.
heard that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
which is really cool. I feel like people are paying attention there more, and it just kind of creates like a vibe.
Totally. I think you were talking. There's a balance of being cool and too cool.
Yes.
Like we want to be cool.
Yeah.
And we think that the talent that we book and the shows and our attention to detail is cool. It's so cool to say you think things you do are cool.
Yeah.
But that and
You look really cool right now.
I feel
Sunglasses,
really cool, yeah.
sweatbands.
Uh-huh. Sweatpants?
Like sweatbands.
Oh, sweatbands,
like
yeah.
around your head, I'm imagining.
Yeah, and so anyway, fucking
Super cool.
but then the like being welcoming, it
Yeah.
doesn't preclude being too cool for your audience.
Yeah.
One, I think the talent we're drawn to also changes the culture of what the audience is going to be like. We're not drawn to people that are like negging on the crowd or
Right.
wanting to like almost inviting a heckling
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of experience. Like it's more storytelling. That sounds broad and boring, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a real personal approach to the talent. And because of the stage, it's not like you're in a bar. You're on a raised stage in an old theater.
Yeah.
It kind of adds to the feeling of like a special event rather than like you're in a rowdy kind of environment.
I remember those early days, like there were a couple people when the theater was starting that they would like kind of shit on the theater when they were on stage.
Oh, yeah.
And it just didn't work. Like because it felt so inviting and communal. And it it's not the type of place where you're like, oh, there's what's that light? Or like,
Yeah.
oh, why are these things here? There's something on
It's
the carpet.
funny, like in the first few weeks, there was a lot more of that, and not even a lot, but and some of the people you would expect would do that.
Well, it's
Yeah.
just such a way that comics start their set. Is like,
Yeah.
I'm going to spend the first minute getting everybody on my side by just like making fun of the room.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really play that well.
No,
I
it
feel like
doesn't.
we
yeah.
have
Yeah.
some sort of we have ghosts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're protecting us.
I think so too.
You want to
Yeah.
fuck with us? We'll fucking haunt you.
Yeah.
Whoa. Cool.
Not me talking.
Yeah.
It's the ghost.
Yeah. But meeting you guys like early on in my comedy career, which I started late, like I felt like it was like a fast track education, like just watching you guys work and also diving through your old podcast, The Gatekeeper.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like so many great interviews. There's one I tell people to go to, which is like, I think it's the first or second one with Adam.
I think it's the first one. Yeah.
Yeah, like you and Adam from the Comedy Store, like the two biggest bookers at the time, like talking about booking. Like this is like comedy 101 on like how to behave, how to get in, and like how to do those things. It was just so cool.
Well, and a lot of those things we talked about, and it really comes down to how and why we book people.
Yeah.
And what's so cool is Vanessa, who didn't come from a booking background and is now leading the charge. And it's been an education, I'm sure, for her, but she's come so far. But it's like now I have a team member that understands like all the ins and outs and why we book, who we book. And talent is...
I got a head start by just being your best friend the whole time you were at the
That's
improv
true.
and hearing
Yeah.
all your like complaints that felt like I didn't understand them. And then like 2 weeks into this, it's like, oh, that is the worst when that happens.
But
Yeah.
we're not inundated. We're still inundated with people that are looking for stage time. But because we're not a club that has 20 spots a night, we have maybe, one show a week, if that we book, and there's 4 or 5 spots, and it's generally reserved for, headlining comics. So,
And generally, we get to approach booking more as a theater than as a club in terms of
Yeah.
like people are pitching shows to us and we get to curate that. So it's different. I would say the majority of our icky experiences are related directly to agents and people that just like that are used to working at the culture of a club. So they're used to like needing to strong arm or be super aggressive and things like that, where it's like, that is not us. That's not our vibe. It doesn't work for us. Like you're not messing with business people that are like trying to drive a hard bargain. You're messing with people that are like, oh, you're mean. No, thank you.
yeah, I think that is... Yeah, but nothing's changed. And I think it is... We still want to deal with people that are nice and
Excuse me.
not entitled.
Yeah.
And talent is, of course, super important, but it's not the be all end all. And yeah, we'd rather have someone that's super nice and still really good and going to delight our crowd. But
But patience is so great too. I mean, people
Oh, yeah.
showing up and patience. I think there's a few stories of people that had wanted to get involved in a big way early on or do a big show. And we had to do the hard thing for us, which is like kind of give the boundaries of like, we're not really there yet. We only have a few spots. And instead of that turning people off, they kept showing up.
Yeah.
And we got to keep seeing them in a smaller doses. And then that's like resulted in really positive relationships and more stage time.
Yeah, and I'll also say the long game, and it goes for anyone. Like, and we're learning that with our employees, and with I think even with you and people we've been working with from the beginning. Like, I think you're the perfect temperament for like you've always been like very just patient. Like you realize that,
and allowed us to grow and figure stuff out because we didn't come out the gates with, like deep pockets, a huge fully formed business plan,
right?
The ability to take on massive things. Like it's been super organic. So much of our growth that like the people that have been patient and flexible and kind, it becomes so apparent when we're like, we have the bandwidth or the resources to finally get to support them. Yeah. As opposed to like, if that's a turnoff from the beginning,
right. Yeah,
then that bridge is burned, even if it was never super negative. It's just like to have the understanding that this is hopefully and not intended to be a flash in the pan or an overnight success. Like we want to grow something magical that's lasting and that has a lot of different arms, but that just takes a while. Yeah. You can't make an octopus overnight, honey.
And sometimes the people who like are at different phases, you need different people. Like the people you need running around like in the first phase with their heads cut off might not be in the next phase when everything is like super tight and straight.
And they probably won't be because those people are probably already like established in a career and they don't have the time or bandwidth to make no money and to run around.
Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah. Exactly. And we've gotten to grow some people in really great ways. Like some of our staff that has been, it's not even experience. It's like been showing up all the time. And with the right attitude, it's like the work that they are capable of presents itself.
Right.
Yeah. Another word I think of is low maintenance.
Yeah.
Low maintenance. Oh, it's so key.
Critical. And but
releasing.
I think in general, like, I don't even know if this is what you want for your podcast, but just like as
great.
a nugget of wisdom overall, especially for anyone approaching a career in the arts or anything is long game. Like your life is your long game. Your career is your long game. And so, waiting, if it takes a couple extra years, but you're not alienating every single person and hitting up everyone, like, and I know in comedy it's like you hear so many podcasts and interviews where it's like you just got to say what you want until you get it.
Well, and it's also people say things like it's who you know, and then that encourages people to do this sort of like reckless networking almost, where it's like I know this guy gave this guy my card, I know that guy.
Reckless, that's a good term, reckless networking.
Yeah, because it's not that's not how you actually know people. Right. It's like who you actually know. And those are the people that, in 2 years, this person that we've known, that we've had meetings with on and off, you're going to be like, oh, we can finally use them. Yeah. And there's a big opportunity as opposed to, and I think we see it with talent, staff, and agents where it's like, we want this thing right now. Right. And that's just, it's not wise. It's not thinking of a growing business. It's not thinking of yourself as an entity that like, can inspire trust and respect. It's just looking at these micro opportunities.
And I feel like people still feel there's these opportunities. Like if I get this show or if I get this thing, that all these things are going to break open for me. And it feels like you just need little fires all around town and different things now. And they all need to be like brewing. Like, I mean, I even have comedian friends who do like late night and that, that's great, but it's just one thing of many things you need to do.
Well, Comedy Bunker is a great example, right? Like that serves you on so many levels and it's also great for the community and you're building something, you're truly meeting people, you're learning all these things at once and it happens to be a great opportunity. Like,
definitely.
And you still are hustling in a million other ways.
And I feel like I totally feel you guys' life as a booker, man. Like, just being inundated with people.
I bet you get it more than us at this point.
Maybe.
It's a weekly show, right?
And you're so directly, exactly associated with it. You don't have a wall that you can deflect to at all.
I don't have a wall. It's I need a wall.
We're lucky
I see
to
these
have
shows
Connie.
who have producers, and that might need to be a step at some point. Like I don't mind doing it now. I mean, I'm pretty nice with it. Like, you know, I try to build good lineups, and you know, I give people chances too. So it's as long as it's a good show, and I try to make it balanced as much as I can. Sometimes I feel bad because, like, you know, people have different schedules, and it's a lineup show, so comedians have other opportunities, and sometimes they get like a bigger gig and they need to take that and cancel. And so I try to make very diverse and balanced lineups, but sometimes it looks like could be 10 white or 8 white guys, but it's just circumstance. Like some people had to cancel, some things change.
Yeah, that's happened to us too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big part of our I don't even want to say mission, because I don't feel like we're even like chess moves trying to be diverse. It's like truly you want a lineup that reflects different people, that feels fun to watch, that's like interesting and not the same version of a set or viewpoint.
Right.
And then sometimes it is like, oh no, the 3 people that we're going to make this really have like a texture to it and interesting canceled, and now like look what it looks like. But you can't. Yeah,
you can. I think over time they'll see like you're diverse, and it's like you're trying to represent everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, on a one night basis, it can look a little.
When you're doing that show art, and it's like, oh no,
looks like a rally.
I just need a hat on these folks.
Right. So, but yeah, it's been so fun doing the Comedy Bunker. You came to one of the very early ones, and it's just grown into this like fun space in the bottom of a mansion in Sherman Oaks, which is like not exactly like comedy central, but yeah, people love it. We got lots of like locals from the neighborhood. Usually like 50% can be repeat customers. So they tell a friend, they tell a friend. It's not exactly secret. Like you could go find the Eventbrite, but it's mostly like still feels like an insider thing. And
it is insider.
Yeah.
I mean, it is like word of mouth, and even the fact that it's like in the basement of a mansion and that stuff. It feels so club, not like comedy club, but like secret clubhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're getting big names who want to do it now, and they've heard about it. And it's been almost 2 years for the Comedy Bunker too.
Gosh, that's crazy.
That really is.
It's crazy.
Well, it's funny when you say that, because I still feel like that's part of even our story, even as a big venue. It's like we're still on the Eventbrites, but I feel like, and I think that's what's helped us too. It's like it still does feel like you're discovering this new thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you hold on to that.
Right.
But even I think at UCB, like when UCB came to LA, and even when I discovered in New York, there was that appeal of it, like, not everyone knows about this. This is a little thing for me. And I think they still have some of that allure.
Right.
So I guess
sometimes we can forget, like, because it feels like, oh, we know all the comedians, we know all the venues, and there's nothing left to explore. But the other people on the outside, the people who come to these things, like, I mean, I talk about you guys a lot. I'm like, oh, have you been to Dynasty? And some people will be like, I haven't heard of it. And I'm like, oh, it's this thing, or vice versa. And like, people are still discovering like cool things.
Which is weird with a name like Dynasty Typewriter. They don't just innately understand that
Right.
or like, I've heard of it, and like, oh, I just haven't been there yet. Or like,
well, that's the thing. We're in such a big city. There's so many things to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know, we were talking before we started recording about like our growth potential. And like, we've been having so many amazing shows and big things happening, but we're still just scratching the surface of people knowing it. Like, so there's still so much.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's like we're so inside comedy now. And even with Netflix, and even though comedy is exploding in podcasting, your average person knows maybe 5 comics.
Right.
And then your savvy audience member it's a weird mix, because like there's the average person that's discovering everything, and then there's the people that know the lineups that can see the same people around town almost any night of the week.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's like to try to bridge that, create a special experience that is appealing to both somebody discovering comedy and somebody that's like, I know everybody on this lineup.
Right.
That's kind of a challenge.
Yeah, because I think, like, for instance, like last night we were talking about the lineup at Comedy Bunker, and it was a great lineup. And some people knew none of the names, and some people were comedy fans. They're like, oh, I know everyone on this list, and I'm so excited to be here. But everyone walks away having a good time, you know?
Yeah.
I think there's like a certain trust that you build that this is going to be a good night.
And I'm sure you get this, and I know Vanessa, like, was sitting in the back on our Saturday night shows when we booked them, like, there's of course the joy of when that huge name that, you know, most of the audience came to see is doing great. But the best joy is like, you know, some of the, like, I think of Felicia Folks.
Yes.
It's like, you know, comics that we know, like this is maybe one of their bigger shows right now.
Yeah.
They're sandwiched in between famous people on the lineup, and you know the audience doesn't need to like them. Like they're not here for them. They don't need to like them. They know that they've got the 3 people they came for.
Right.
And then watching them like kill more than anyone else is the best feeling.
Right.
And then I think that's the joy of curation.
Yes.
Is getting like, we love this and we want to share this with you. I think
I
that's
love
the spirit.
curating lineups. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Well,
like
and it's like getting to pack in little treats too.
Yeah.
From either like a performer that maybe everybody doesn't know, but you just know will fit that night, or we get to have fun with like, we could put a magician in this lineup. We
Right,
could put,
yeah.
Like we've done a lot of stuff with the Bob Baker marionettes, like things like that, where it's
I
like,
love the marionette guys.
it's so cool
So
because
fun,
it
yeah.
just transports you when you're like, oh, this isn't the regular show. And also for us, it's reminding ourselves that like people that love to be entertained, they have good taste. You know, and it's not just, you don't have to serve the same thing up. There's so much crossover from like magical kind of programming or things that delight you, and putting it together just strengthens it.
It is. So should we talk about FICO scores now?
Or quarterly stuff.
We can. I mean, I feel like we have such an interesting business relationship that goes beyond.
You've been
But, like,
served.
what are some of the business lessons like for people who want to start their own venue like somewhere else that you've learned?
And there's so many. I mean, I think that
Take your time.
Take your time. I think it's still overwhelming.
Yeah.
Like, I think even, figuring out like, oh shit, after our first year, taxes, like, and all the things, and now there's court, like, it is overwhelming, and it will not ever not be overwhelming.
Yeah.
But it's also people who can do it. I mean, we talk about that all the time. Like you pass a donut shop or a coffee, and like that person has figured out how to run a business.
Right.
We can do it.
You can buy flour, you can buy sugar.
Yeah. There's things that feel, I think if you don't come from a business background,
Yeah.
it feels really intimidating and daunting of like, I'll never figure out how to do that. Or that's not what my education is.
Yeah.
But with the right resources and help,
Yeah.
it's remembering that like, oh, sound decision making is
That's the backbone
I
of
think.
business. And a lot of business language is developed by, financial advisors and Wall Street to make it purposefully intimidating.
Yeah.
And a lot of
good
things
job, mission accomplished.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like buy the soda for $1, sell it for $2.
Yeah.
Rent the space, sell the tickets. Like that's what business is.
Well, it is. I mean, it's like, here's a little peek behind the scenes. We've been selling Snickers and Twizzlers and lots of candy. And I
know where we're going.
the executive decision that we need to up our chocolate bar game because our audience,
Deserves better.
they deserve better. So I ordered a bulk shipment of Lindt chocolates, LINDT chocolates,
Yeah.
because we need something for our audience members.
How does Lindt hit you? Do you think that's a luxury or a grocery store luxury?
I feel it's like a medium luxury.
I think that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's still very good.
No, it's. I
think
think
that's-
yeah. That's the.
It's not.
That's the truth.
It's corporate luxury or like
Yeah,
it's
that's
not
right.
artisanal.
no, it feels
it's still
grocery
very-
store luxury. Like
Yeah.
I could get that at Ralph's, but it's nice.
It was started in 1854.
By a chocolatier.
It says excellence on the wrapper.
Yeah.
They have the commitment to excellence in every aspect. I'm just reading the back of the.
But Godiva's in there too. Like Lindt, Godiva. They're all like grocery store
They're all like
luxury, right?
almost like Valentine's level chocolates.
Well, like
You
where
know
would
what
you
I mean?
put Ferrero Rocher? Or
Right in that same
the same
echelon.
place. It might
Yeah.
even be a little lower.
What about
They also make Tic Tacs, by the way.
really?
Ferrero
Yeah.
Rocher?
Yeah, interesting, right? Italian
Tic
company.
Tacs?
Yeah.
Like brand name Tic Tacs?
Tic
That same
Tacs,
company?
The same company, yeah. It's an Italian company.
Wow.
And they
about-
make a Nutella.
That
That's
feels
why in
more correct.
Ferrero Rocher there's Nutella.
What about like Scharfenberger or there's something like that?
Oh yeah, what is that?
Or what's the one? Ghirardelli. Where is that?
Ghirardelli.
Same tier.
That's it.
Maybe-
maybe it's slightly above the other
Yeah,
ones.
because it's a little
hard
harder to
pronounce.
get harder to get your mouth around that one.
Anyway, point is, we got these bars in, and the cost a lot more. So I thought we come out the gates, let's charge $8 for them. How does $8 hit you for a
It
Lindt bar?
felt a little high.
That's my reaction as well.
As was the reaction of every single person that works at Dynasty. So we've landed on 6 for now.
6.
And we're going to get a more artisanal.
Oh yeah,
chocolate.
we've got a good chocolate lined up that is not in the realm of any of the ones we discussed. It's
Yeah.
But
well,
I
here's
guess
why
the-
movie theaters can sell these things for such prices. I mean, one, you're trapped, but two, it's like those comically large boxes.
Yeah.
So the cost per item isn't that much more, but you're you're selling this huge item, so people are like, all right, well, it's $6-8, but it's like the size of my face.
Well,
so
and
like,
these lints are huge.
are they huge?
Well, like I would say you take a Hershey bar, you add 40%.
Yeah, but I also think it's dark chocolate. It's richer. You might share it with a friend.
Yeah.
And the big thing is like if you're on a date and you're
You
a
seal the
Dynasty,
deal.
right now there's no.
Date chocolate.
Wow, there's not a date. Like that is a thing. I think
Yeah.
wow, they're springing for the lint.
We've started
This
an
might go
internal
somewhere.
thing. Oh, I guess we put it in the newsletter, so it's getting out there. But we're really trying to push that like every love story is a lint story. What's your lint story?
What's your lint story?
You need to get some sponsorship.
Well, that's what we're working towards.
You know, we tagged them in an Instagram story, so I feel like that was a savvy move.
But I guess the whole point of bringing up the lint is that I love talking about lint first and foremost. But those are the things you learn. You know, like phase one. And I think notorious for putting things into phases.
And usually saying we're still at phase one.
I know.
It's like, there's been a lot of phases before this one.
But
The name of phase one just keeps changing.
yeah, but to this point, phase one has been. Well, has been. You know, let's just get bulk regular stuff, Snickers and Skittles. And
No,
whatever it
there
is.
was a phase before phase one.
Well, actually, phase one, which was short,
Cherry mash.
was let's go to Galco's and get some artisanal stuff.
Yeah.
And all very nostalgic kind of things. But we paid more attention to wrappers than flavors.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wrappers were amazing, but
Yeah.
there's probably a reason why those stopped being
No
produced.
one wants to eat that. Yeah.
And just the ease of like getting them it was like, let's just get the bulk stuff at Cost Plus or whatever it was. Smart and Final. Shout out to SNF. But I think the idea of diving in, we got these things. And then like, I think it was month one was like, let's get a popcorn machine. Like popcorn has become truly one of our most beloved aspects of the business. It's like just represents
Joke about
more.
it all the time. We made t-shirts about
Made
it.
soap.
Yeah, we made soap.
Yeah.
Popcorn
soap.
We got deep into the popcorn game.
And we're only getting deeper. But that's part of the fun of the business too, especially one like this that's like just customer focused retail in a way, like is just dive into stuff, and that's the fun of business. As far as
That's
a lesson,
the least enchanting way that the theater's ever been described.
What?
We're customer focused retail here at Dynasty.
I've never once said retail,
I know, it felt really yucky. Here at Dynasty.
and yet it flowed off my tongue.
Right. Those walking videos where he just follows you down the hallway.
Follow me.
Right. You go to some guy in a cubicle.
Meet the staff.
Yeah.
Well, we
This is
do.
our
I
guy
do have a new
Linz.
catchphrase that does fall into that.
How do you top your pop?
We're going to put that on our t-shirts and make every single employee say that.
Did you see that's the marquee today?
No.
Yeah, but paid for by Dynasty Corporate.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And you guys have a full suit. The guy that dresses up. Poppy.
Oh, yeah,
Poppy.
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 But I mean, even
Poppy's been in
we
retirement.
started
He'll
with
come
like,
back.
let's just get a popcorn machine because we want to sell popcorn.
Yeah.
And then now we have a whole topping bar for our popcorn. And I think that's just the fun of diving into any business is like you make these projections. And I remember how much time I spent with you while we were doing the Kickstarter and just ramping up and spreadsheets and like here's projected ticket sales versus concession sales versus this and what we can make here. And that's all so important. But at the end of the day, you start a company, you see what hits, and then you start adjusting. And that's it.
Exactly. Yeah. And then part of it is just taking the step, like even though with this podcast, like record an episode, get the artwork, do the thing, and then be consistent about putting it out.
Yes.
And then things start to happen. A lot of art now is just being consistent. Like you see the guys who post consistently,
true.
put on shows consistently, and then the audience will find you if you stay consistent. But if you drop in and out of your projects, people are like, all right,
Or
he's
if
not
you
serious.
put it all into one big thing.
Right.
I have some friends who've done that
Yes.
too, with like albums or shows or projects
Right.
where it's like, this is the thing, this is going to change everything.
Right.
And even if it is, likely your audience isn't ready for the thing because you haven't built them.
Yeah.
Because this is the thing that would begin to build them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing might change your life, but it probably won't.
But usually only if it's underscored by a million things
Yeah.
you did.
Yeah.
You know, there's going to be something that
Yeah.
tips the scales.
Right.
But you really have to have been like laying
Yeah.
rocks on the scale.
Right.
For
One
years.
thing will change your life at some point because you did all these little
Yes.
things.
Look,
Yeah.
I mean, that goes to Dynasty,
Right.
or this, all this stuff. I was listening to Julia Louis-Dreyfus on Conan's podcast, and it's crazy to think of her, who's one of the most successful people, but she just wrapped Veep, and it was like she's like just itching for what's next. And I think that just goes to being an artist or just someone that it's like you do something because you love it, and not because it's going to change anything. It's just you're doing it because you love it and you're ready for the next one.
Well, you usually don't know the thing that's going to tip the scales. Like we don't get to know this is the thing.
Right.
It just happens. And that's like the hunger of making things.
Yeah. I mean, even Seinfeld, the biggest comedian of all time, or one of them, Comedians in Cars and Coffee.
Bob Hope.
Don't get him started on Hope.
Bob Hope. Yeah.
He's been forgotten, but Bob Hope.
He was also one of the biggest ever. But Seinfeld took the Comedians in Cars like to all these places, and they're like, this isn't going to work. And so he's like, did it himself.
Well, it's also like, you dummies, it's going to work.
Right.
I've got everything to make it work.
Right. It came out on like Crackle, like Sony's like digital only division.
That's a Crackle product?
Yeah.
You'd be surprised.
What else is a Crackle?
What else is a Crackle? They put out House of Cards, famously.
Did they?
No. Bob Hope was an early investor in Crackle.
Yeah. I love the another Dynasty alumnus, Andrew's podcast.
Interesting in the history of stand-up.
It's so good. It's so
Wayne,
interesting. Diving into all these like areas, like talking about Bob Hope recently too and stuff, and like all these vaudeville and the history of the Oscars and stuff. Shout out to Andrew.
And he's someone that is inspiring. Like I met him when I was working at the Improv, and he was just working in their podcast division at some point.
Yeah.
But he just started when CISO, like the short-lived NBC comedy experiment portal. He would just loved some of the content. So he created the CISO C Show.
Yeah.
With no backing from NBC or CISO.
But it sounded so professional from day one. Like the production value was like as if everyone had invested in this.
Yeah, and he just out of pure passion and curiosity created this podcast, and he met so many people and willed it to be where in their final months, like he was officially sanctioned and given money by NBC to produce this podcast, and that paved the way for the history of stand-up with Wayne Fetterman, and he met so many people through that. So just another inspiring story.
And he produced your previous podcast, Gatekeeper. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Yeah. and has produced the Long Shot.
Long Shot. Yeah. Before I was starting this podcast, I called him to just kind of consult with him and talk about, where I was going to go and stuff. He's a wealth of knowledge in terms of everything from this Zoom box that I have here to, podcasting platforms for hosting, et cetera, and, how to market it, when to do certain things, length of the podcast, types of guests to have on.
What did he mention us right out the gate?
Obviously, he's like
he's probably like, you don't want to get him on the first episode.
You want to get Benjamin when you're
episode
established.
3 is a good one for them to get on, and I'd love to have him on too and talk about.
I don't think he's available.
Yeah, he's
damn
very.
it! I missed my chance.
You got to get in early with Stevens.
Yeah, but I do love I listen to a lot of podcasts. It's a really good way to learn the inside ropes to a lot of these industries, and like especially comedy. There's so many. It's like a wealth of knowledge.
Well, and it's so casual and so unfiltered.
Yeah,
that like you'll hear people saying things they would never say if they really felt like they were being if it was being written in an interview.
Yeah,
but it's so it's such an intimate way to learn stuff.
Yeah,
you're just eavesdropping basically.
Yeah, I just discovered Sam Morrill's old podcast.
And weird timing.
Why?
We just booked him the headline.
We just announced today that he's got a show coming
serendipity.
up.
But listen to him and Joe List and Rachel Feinstein talk about like the New York comedy scene and stuff, and like the little inside baseball to that. Like it's just so interesting.
What's your top takeaway from that podcast?
My top takeaway is that you have to. It's a grind. It's a grind for everyone at every different level, and watching those guys like work so hard and do so many sets. And also take away that like the New York comedy scene is so fun. Like I did my first week out there last month, and you can do so many sets a night. And the New York comedians are just like get that opportunity.
How
and
did you decide to do that week?
Like why did I chose that one week?
Yeah, like what was that like?
I have 2 kids, and so they were in Michigan. So
there it is. That's
I had
the week.
Freedom Week, as I call it. And I was like, well, I got to take advantage of this. And my old roommate, she still kept her place in New York. It was like a rent controlled place they used as like a crash pad. So had a place to stay.
Oh, nice.
I had family free for a week. I had one guy said he wanted to book me at New York Comedy Club. So I had one show. I was like, cool. So let me build a week of shows around that. And
how do you do that? Like, I don't know.
Reach out to bookers or?
Yeah. What is your approach?
I do the thing that I find, this is the interesting thing. Like I find, I get deluged with incoming emails being like, oh, I wanted to be at the Comedy Bunker, but then I have to do that to people too. So I understand like both sides. So I had the one show, and then some people, when they would do the Comedy Bunker, like, oh, hit me when you do come to New York. So I started with those, and then someone would be like, oh, I'm not doing a show that week, but call this guy. And it just kind of like cascades.
Yeah.
And then I think going out there, I had 8 shows. And then when I was out there, I picked up 2 more. So it was like, it was a perfect week. Like it was so fun.
Cool.
And what are you at your over a year mark of doing stand up?
Yeah, it'll be 2 years in
2 years?
September. Yeah.
And you say you started late, but the level that you're at and the amount of shows you're doing and stuff, like you worked harder than other people.
I worked hard, and I feel like I didn't come from like a zero entertainment background too. So I feel like that kind of helped. I did start writing jokes, I think one of my jokes that's still in my act, I wrote like before I started. So I always find it weird answering that question, like how long you've been doing stand up.
Yeah.
But I think
just say a million years.
A million years. Yeah. I just say several years because I don't know like what's appropriate.
Yeah.
Well, stand up is reps, and it's like, you could be doing stand up for 2 years, but you just hustled and got up 500 times versus someone that's doing it for 5 years and they go up a couple times a month
at one spot in their spot.
Yeah.
Because I know people like that too, that have like the 2 shows they do that they're friends with the people. And it's like, well, you're never going to get better because one kind of audience, one kind of lineup, and you're not being tested.
Yeah. And it's there's so many great mics here too. So it's easy to get caught in that trap where like, you pay the $5, you're going up. But then, those kind of reps are one thing, and really making the effort to reach out and try and get on shows. And I think it helps you get better too. Cause then you have to like you have to deliver for the audience and make sure they're having a good time and stuff like that. And if it's a paid show, I try not to bring my notepad up there. I try, not that there's anything wrong with
classy
that, but
man.
it's classy man, but sometimes I do, we'll see. I'm at the Improv tonight, actually, the Lab.
What's going on tonight?
7:30 at the Lab. And then this place, Saatchi LA, after. I don't know. It should be fun.
Where's that?
It's called Saatchi LA. I don't know. It's, I think it's an event space in Centinela.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, this is still learning.
Still learning. I'm producing a monthly, we'll see if it's going to be monthly at the Lab.
Oh, cool.
It's called Culture Lab. So it's going to be fun.
Good name.
And then one at the West Side Comedy Theater with Andrew Delman.
How do you do all these things and have a adult job and have 2 children?
It's as Jamie said when I walked in here, you look tired.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Jamie should have never said that.
Yeah. And obviously in the back of my mind, I've always, wanted to do one with you guys, but I feel like knowing the ins and outs of that, how it works, like I'm not going to bring like a lineup comedy show and do 20 tickets. That's...
Bless your heart.
That's
the nicest thing.
I'm trying to develop them in other places to a point where like, okay, I know this is like a 150 person show,
That's beautiful what you just said.
Yeah, I think it really is understanding. And we care so much, or you have no idea. Like when people do have that understanding, what was the last one that it was someone we were talking to in the last couple of days that was just like, they said something
that they were going to build it somewhere and then hope to bring
it. Dax.
Yeah.
Just that understanding.
We love, who's part of our community. But yeah, it is that understanding of like, I think that's been a hard thing for us as friends and business people and people with really funny friends that we genuinely love and want them to do stuff. We also have like bills to pay.
Yeah.
And the balancing of like, I don't ever want to have a friend feeling like they're disappointed in themselves or that we have to be disappointed in someone.
Right.
So to just grow something together with the knowledge that like of what's best for everyone.
Yeah.
And again, the long game.
Yeah. We when we first opened, I think in our first 6 months, that was one of the major things we learned too, is like we can't afford to have shows with less than X number of people.
Right. Literally.
Yeah, literally.
And we wanted that, like as part of what we really wanted for the space was to have enough time to do more experimental kind of shows with smaller audiences, and then it just doesn't work.
At this point, like once we
yeah.
get to a certain point, because we wanted and we opened as with the intent of being obviously a big headliner place, but we want to have smaller shows. We want to develop talent.
We want to introduce people. Yeah.
But we have to build to that point. So when people get that, I mean, I want to kind of talk about from this business, like I don't want to give like all of our insider business stuff, but you know, kind of our door deals have developed since we opened too. And can we talk about like the minimum and stuff? I mean, not exactly, but like...
I don't think we have to say numbers, but I think that is helpful. And also that we don't have our liquor license. So our revenue is ticket sales.
Right.
That's how we make our money. And our other revenue is concessions, which we make based on how many tickets we sell.
Yeah.
And that's not a huge amount of money because we don't have our liquor license.
Yeah, and I think for any of your listeners that are comics or your producers that... because I think, so basically at a certain point last year, we instituted, there's an X dollar minimum for most of our shows that if we don't make as a venue, the producer has to come up with that.
Yeah, whatever the difference is.
Maybe come up 2 or 3 times.
Mm-hmm. And it's just for broad strokes, the minimum can be met with, even at the lowest price we do, less than a quarter of the house met. So it's basically saying like, you have to make sure you could get...
How confident are you in this show?
Yes, yeah.
Because if you're not confident enough to catch this, then are you really sure you're going to sell it?
And guess what? That just changed so much.
Yeah.
You will see the biggest talk. People be like, well, no, that's not fair. I can't do that.
Right.
Not even always not fair, but like just being like, okay, that's actually, I'm not...
Right. The reality of everything sets in quickly.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And it's not even that much, but it kind of exposes... It is funny when it's someone like, because we have a very, and that's another aspect of it. We have a very thoughtful and detail oriented submission process, because we really want to vet, you know, the shows, make sure it's a fit, but also the passion and
the thoughtfulness of like, what do you want this event to be? Not just like, why do you want to put on a show? But we do ask like, why do you want to do a show?
Yeah,
right.
Because that's an important question. Because so many people just want stage time, and that's not enough to do an entire show.
At there.
Yes, exactly.
For what we are. But the minimum, it really just instantly shows. We've had a few shows. By and large, the people that are just, they're intent and excited about producing a thing, like they're willing to take it on. And like I said, like it really hasn't come up. Like once people take that on, like,
I think that's how we find our people too. And not just the people that are like, there are the great people that are not fazed by that. And that just increases their, promotion and their passion for it. But I think also the people that are kind of smart enough to say like, oh, you know what? I'm not right there yet. Like I didn't really realize it like that. Those people have come back with a bigger show, or they'll be like, I'm going to grow this and bring it. And it just reminds people that like everyone has something to kind of lose, and we also should have something to gain.
Well, I think, people just don't think, they're like, I just want to put on a show. And like, they forget about like risk as far as, business goes. Like, there's a risk taken when you book something in a venue. And so it's like, I think it's important that people be willing to take on risk.
Yeah.
And sometimes people
financial risk, because a lot of times they feel like, okay, well, I'm working on this and that's my risk. But that from a collaborative business perspective doesn't work.
Right.
And also the feeling, and the few times it happened in our first 6 months where we booked a show and there's, 15 people there, they feel terrible. We feel terrible.
It doesn't set anyone up for success.
Yeah. And so with the minimum, and at least like, all right, worst case scenario, all right, we're making enough so we can at least pay our staff. They feel whole, we feel whole. We can kind of both wipe our hands clean and be like, all right, that was what it was, but we're going to survive. You're going to survive.
We've both been on the other side as artists too, and I think been the people that are like, oh, come on, take a chance on this,
right,
like, there's nothing on the calendar, let us do a show.
Yeah.
But understanding the resources it takes, the way it feels really bad if it doesn't pan out in terms of like an enthusiastic audience and a bummed out lineup, that doesn't feel good. But for us, we really do put a lot of work into any show that we book. Like, we have an artist that makes art for them. We're in so much contact with the producers trying to make it go right. We want the tech to be beautiful. Like all these elements that your show deserves to be great, and we want everyone to feel like they're having like the best show.
Yeah.
And if they're not in the position to realize like, oh, this is a real show I'm doing.
Or what if it's their first time at Dynasty?
Yeah.
And this is the experience they get. Oh, it's 15 people in this weird theater that's empty.
And we're still at that point where we're new enough that somebody could be taking their chance. Like we could be slowly developing our audience. They take a chance on something and they come to a show that had no business putting on a show because they didn't like take the time to do it.
And equally, there's been a couple lineups and like they booked a great lineup, and then we have a comic who's their first time at Dynasty.
Yes.
They've been hearing great things, and then they're performing for a really small audience. And this is kind of an aside, but like one of our early lessons was this one show, and they were scrambling, and I think they were typical. They were used to promoting shows at a club, which is completely different because at times you can paper a room.
Right.
They're selling drinks.
There's built-in walk-ups.
Yep.
There's
built-in walk-ups. They, I think, did a huge push on Craigslist. And I don't think we were there that night, but from what we heard from everyone was like, this was not a Dynasty crowd. It was a bunch of people that got free tickets that were confused why they were there. And it's like, that was not good for anyone.
No. And it doesn't look good. Like there was no thing that made it okay. There's no saving grace.
It makes me think too, it's like, I'm just thinking about people listening to your podcast that are young comics or show producers, and like truly, like we want to teach people etiquette as far as we're concerned, like because we've seen so much, but like,
and it's so easy to win people over. I don't know. I mean, like it's not etiquette. Isn't like I feel like that sounds like sort of like school marmy shaking a finger, but it's also like the flip side is it's so easy to endear yourself to people by just being chill, basically.
Yeah, I love that word, school marmy.
I've never heard it.
That's two great words tonight.
Yes.
But like, the idea of like remembering, like look at the context, know where you're pitching things, but it's like we do hold ourselves to the highest standards. Like we had Eddie Izzard and Hannah Gadsby and Adam Sandler. Like that's at the highest level what we're doing, and so many of the little things are coming to me right now, but high maintenance, low maintenance, 90% of the time, the biggest names, the biggest shows are the lowest maintenance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so when we're taking things on, it is an investment in time. And so I think 90% of the shows that are the biggest heartache
I've been the most resources poured into them, which just like adding to the, quote, failure of the show is the resentment of the time put in and the demands made by people when it's like, you didn't need to do any of that. That's totally unnecessary. And
we've learned so much, and we try to set our boundaries. And so when we book something, even so much has evolved since the first few months, but like you get an email that gives you 5 people that you will be in touch with that will take care of, and people for the most part read that, and it's great. It's like box office goes here, and then just read. And so that, I guess that's the note to people is like, read this stuff. Like we are here to take care of you. When you don't listen to it and like you're reaching out and texting the owners instead of like reaching out, like that.
Or when you don't show up with your stuff. I mean, I think that's, I don't want any of this to sound negative because we really do get excited about everything we book. Like we want it all to be a success and not a financial success, but like a joyous experience. That is
and a financial
success. Millions of dollars. But we want everything to be a treat for the audience. We want to know, and we believe when we're booking things that it's a fit for the audience, and that the performers are going to have a great time. And we get so excited by the kind of talent we have. But then when there are the shows that like are super high maintenance, or the people that come and they're late for tech, or they don't bring their tech stuff, anything like that. It's like, you're not thinking about what you're making, the experience for people. It doesn't set your show up for success. It stresses people out in a way that's like so unnecessary and unhelpful. And we've tried to build like more and more scaffolding that will teach people like, this is how we can help you be great.
Yeah.
It's always, you're absolutely right, because I remember my last time when I was doing engineering for like a lot of R&B singers in town, and people always wanted stories. They're like, oh, isn't that person such a diva? And I'm like, no, they're so cool. They come in professional, like them, like almost by themselves, do the work, are great, and leave. It's the people in the middle who want to be those big names are always the nightmares. Like it's always the people who haven't made it are in the middle rungs that are like, they want to act diva-y because I think they think these divas act diva-y, but they don't.
They
They're
don't.
so
They got
cool.
there by being super professional.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of how sweet, just to name drop one sweet sweetie, and everybody has been a sweet sweetie. All the names Jamie said of those huge headliners.
And before you say that, just saying too, like, I feel like we can count on, one hand how many shows have been the negative stuff.
Yes,
Yeah.
But it takes so much energy. That's why
Right.
we mention it. Like, we've been so lucky. And
we also just, every time one happens, which has been, a tiny handful, we want to build a system that
Right.
will make it not ever happen
You,
again.
you need to constantly ward against it.
Yes,
Otherwise,
yes.
that creeps in.
but we're happy and
Yeah,
positive
No,
and
we're
thrilled.
just like pinching ourselves. Like every week
Oh,
we
yeah,
look
yeah.
at the thing or we're writing the newsletter. It's like, oh my gosh.
But who are you gonna talk
I don't think I've ever gone down to Dynasty and seen anything go wrong or like
Oh, that's so
a show
nice.
really like eat it or nothing. Like it's always been great.
We haven't really had.
You
we
don't
haven't
think you had
any
bad
true
shows?
nightmares. I
Yeah.
think we've had things that are kind of behind the scenes, a little more draining,
Right.
Or just things that aren't as successful as we want them to be. We want everything to be fun and easy and perfect.
Yeah. Oh, last night at Bunker, a pipe burst.
That's like classic.
It was classic. Like water coming.
Oh
we had to
my
get a bucket. I'm like running outside, turning off the water to that room, and like, and it was some people's first time there. So-
When we had Russell Brand, we had a averted disaster because it was made brilliant and hilarious. But a Mexican radio station was coming in through the mic because it wasn't. It wasn't
was it
grounded.
shielded?
Yeah, it wasn't
Was
grounded.
it wireless?
No. It was just two cables were plugged into each other, so it wasn't grounded
Oh, weird.
to make it long.
It was a tech error, but turned into, and that was the beauty of watching Russell Brand,
Yep.
or someone that could be a diva,
Yeah.
that could have made a big deal about it, but who just turned it into comedy gold and
Made it
interacted
part of the
with that
show,
person.
yeah, and delighted everyone, set everyone at ease. So yeah, that was a great moment.
Yeah, and I was like, are people going to leave? Because it was like a lot of new people's first time at the Comedy Bunker, but we fixed it, got everyone back in, and they were like, it was like a bonding experience.
I was
Like,
gonna say,
Because
like,
that's their story now. They
Yeah,
got to
yeah.
be there that night. Yeah.
right.
something happened.
It was
I can't
on like
remember.
it was one of our best nights. Like people walked away. Like we had some regulars who've seen like a lot of the shows. They're like, this was like the best one you've ever done. And I was like, really? Because I was so thrown by just like scrambling to do all the water stuff and everything, and come back and like reset the room,
I think
get everyone
that's
laughing.
our mentality so much of the time is like we're doing all the things and then we're like, oh wait, this great show's happening.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and that's another major lesson is that mistakes and which are inevitable, and just errors because you're learning. There's such an opportunity to grow and learn. Like if someone came to a show they didn't love, and that's not even the best example. I'm trying to think, but like when someone comes because something's not right, it's an opportunity to right it, and generally those people become your biggest fans.
Yeah.
Because now you can extra take care of them.
Well, and there's an intimacy to that too, right? To somebody
Totally.
seeing a little like behind the curtains or under the hood or whatever, where it's like if you put the elbow grease into making it right or acknowledging it,
Yeah.
instead of just this sort of faceless thing, it becomes a relationship, like a real relationship that you got
And
through
the-
something.
I love all those old show business tropes and saying like the show must go on. Like we're gonna fix the pipe, we're gonna go.
Yes.
Like our AC died one night. I'm like, I ran to Home Depot, I got a wall thing, and I plugged it in, and we're like, we're going. Like I'm not gonna cancel the show. Like we're gonna do it.
We had the ceiling fall on someone during a show.
Oh, that's true.
Should I cut that out or?
It was fine. It was
It landed on a person
It didn't
Some
hit someone.
hunks landed near some musicians.
on stage.
Yep.
Oh wow.
Old buildings.
Yeah, that's
Big,
like that
big
one.
rains in LA.
There was that one famous baseball stadium that kept having tiles fall down. Was it the Mariners?
Sounds right.
Sounds right.
Not in my wheelhouse.
Let's go with. Let's go with yes. Yeah.
It's funny because it was the Seattle Wheelhousers.
Do you
That's
guys have,
another thing to remember. Never go for a joke. That's
Right.
An
Go
improv
for the
tenet.
truth.
Go for the truth. And the truth is that wheelhouse joke was bad.
more yourself, less jokes?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's hard. I mean, I feel like the more I do comedy, the more I'm even like discovering like who I am, but also who, like how much of myself to reveal on stage,
Yeah.
etc.
Well, and there's so many different levels of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like some people do jokes, and
Yeah.
and it's great, and
That's
it's their
fine.
thing. But there is something great when you feel like you really know someone, or this is such like boring thing to say, but there's that like delight when you see someone saying something super bizarre on stage, and it's like they're trying for the first time. They're kind of like confessing something, and the whole audience can relate, and it's like that magical moment where it's like we're all so weird together, because you see the comic feel relieved of like, oh, I'm not a monster, like other people feel like that.
At the Bunker, I do 10 minutes of crowd work. I don't do any material. I'll throw in like new idea bits, just like throw them around, but I love it. I love going in clean, and I went to the Comedy and Magic show, and I saw, do you know Jimmy Brogan? He's like Jay Leno's like longtime like partner, like opening act and stuff. And he does the most amazing crowd work set. It was like a clinic on like how to do it, like staying on them, keep asking more questions, like tying them to the other audience members. And it was so funny. It totally inspired me to like do something like that, like just do like a great crowd work set and like focus on it.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And it was one of my favorites. I look forward to it. Sometimes more than doing the tried and true that I might be doing tonight.
Well, the good news is there's always going to be a crowd there. You can always bail on your stuff and lay into people.
Yeah, I've learned if you just keep talking, at some point you're going to get them back.
Exactly.
Sometimes it takes 3 or 5 minutes.
Well, we always go up and do like, when we're there, we always like welcome the audience and stuff, or almost always.
I love your guys' welcome intros. They're so fun.
They're so all over the map, I'd say, in terms of reception. But my favorite moments are when they get a little awkward. Often it's a Jamie spin out at the top, and then it's acknowledged, and then everyone is like so won over because they feel like they're friends. And it's such I always just stand there for that part.
You've gotten really good at just letting it happen.
Yeah.
You guys are always very present too, which is part of it. Yeah.
We try to be there, and but it was like the first few times maybe we were too performative, or like, oh no, they don't like us. I'm like, nah. And now it's just like, this is awkward. And then people.
Well, there's still an occasional audience or two that just have no interest in seeing. And they're allowed to.
It's fun.
But it ultimately really pays off because people now have a personality and human context for where they're at. They're not just in a place that has this show. It's a place that
chose this show.
Yeah, chose this show. That it's there 7 nights a week. That's doing other stuff that care like about us and what we're seeing. And that I think really is what makes us work. That's why we do it. We do it so I could spin out on stage whenever I want.
And I can just stand there.
Well, I think this has been great. Like I feel like we could talk all day because we have so many different areas we could go, and I'd love to do it again. Is there any shows you want to plug for the unknown amount of listeners to this?
Yes.
Dynasty tonight?
So we have 3.
Oh, yeah. Dynasty Land.
So, and for both of these, we're going to be playing pre-show Dingo.
Whoa.
Hey.
What's Dingo, Jamie?
Let me tell you. Do you know the classic game Bingo?
I've heard of it.
Well, take out the B and the I. Swap them for a D and a Y.
Like Dynasty.
Exactly. And you got yourself Dingo. But if you add in the personality of the two of us or curated Dingo callers, great prizes like a lint bar. This is a true story, by the way.
Okay.
At our, we did Dingo pre-show, and it's so much fun.
The first day we were selling lint.
The first day we were selling lint, so it was a hot topic. When given the choice, one of our winners, a grand prize winner, they were given the choice, a Dynasty t-shirt.
Which are nice quality t-shirts. They're like, you know.
The version 2. They're really nice.
Yeah, V2. They're real nice. They're not
high
the
quality.
BPT.
I have a BPT. It's my gym shirt.
We'll switch one out for you.
I sleep in a BPT.
But any size they want, any of our designs. Or a lint chocolate, they went lint.
Oh,
I went lint.
Yeah, so that's like a $25 value for that lint.
Yeah,
so I think we could sell them for $8
or
to
more
bring this full
because they
circle.
chose it over, so they deemed it more valuable.
Yeah, I see the romance that you're talking about, like the date night, like the tinfoil, and then the passing of it. Like when you're talking about, I'm like, I get it.
It is sexy, sucking on some dark chocolate. Sorry.
Ugh.
And then never mind.
Okay.
All right, well, this has been great, guys.
Wait, Dynasty Land.
Oh, Dynasty
August
Land.
11th. Is that right? August
21st.
Oh, 21st.
And August 21st, we told you about it earlier, but we were very excited about it. It's a collaboration with Spotify.
Podcasts on
Spotify. But we're working with Bart Coleman, who's taking over their comedy podcast division. And Spotify podcasts are one of their big new frontiers. But they're sponsoring, and it's Dynasty Land, so we're opening the entire theater. There's going to be a proper show for about an hour and a half, and then we open up the entire theater. So to
kind of an after party, a lot of experiences throughout the space in different rooms.
it's going to be a carnival.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really cool. So that one, and then on usually the first Saturday, but the next two coming up are the second Saturdays. We do Go Day during the day, which is a free event.
I love Go Day. So fun.
It's like our favorite thing to do. We get to talk to our favorite either entrepreneurs or artists about what inspires them or how they get through creative blocks.
You should come do one.
I would love to do I would be honored to do a Go Day.
Perfect.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Is Brent Forrester still doing his series?
Yeah. Oh, no, he's not doing Comedy Knowledge Drop right now, but he does every Go Day.
Yeah, he's at every Go Day.
Oh, great.
And we're developing Comedy Knowledge Drop as a podcast.
Oh, yes.
And I guess that's the last little plug is that after a year or 18 months, whatever it is, and because I've been talking about podcasts.
We got to get this for the podcast.
Yeah.
This is the
It was
podcast.
going to be launching every week for the last
daily
100
for
weeks.
2 years.
But we're finally transforming our back room into a podcast studio, and so excited. And our final lesson is being patient because you can only do so much at one time. And if I had my druthers, like we would have launched and had 75 different shows that we were producing.
Right.
But to what you said earlier about consistency being key, we would not have had the bandwidth to do a good job consistently. But now we're finally at a place where we have the team members that know how to produce, that we have the space, that we have people that can take on some of the work that was taking a lot of our energy. It's great.
Yeah. So we're excited. So hopefully by September, let's just say October at this point. September would be nice, but we will be launching a podcast.
2020 has a certain ring to it.
Well, January 1st.
We're never it's like, sorry, I love imparting lessons, but
Lessons are great.
Going back to our first month, I know you're wrapping it up, but let's talk about it.
We can
Just fade out. Just fade out.
Stay
Latif.
hot.
When we opened up their first month, we did, I think, a show on Friday and Saturday, and that was it.
Yeah.
And it was literally the first weekend, like Vanessa and I hosted the first two shows, and it was fun, but we were like, oh, we're hosting and running this venue, and we're running around trying to pay the comics and trying to print the lineups and
trying to communicate with tech and making sure somebody has popped the popcorn. That only at that point we were the only people we trusted to pop the popcorn,
right?
Yeah.
Because we didn't want anyone to get burned or anything, and we didn't have
I was
proper
Mr.
training.
Snips. I was
Mr. Snips cutting everything, baby.
But looking back, like
Good steady hand.
we didn't know exactly how to do it, but we dove right in, and that's the lesson you learn. All right, after the first weekend, we need to take a step back as performers, and it's taken us about a year and a half, and we found our for now is we're able to do a 2-minute intro, and then
Go Day,
and now in the next phase, phase 2, we'll be able to hopefully perform 55. More and start doing live podcasts and all that stuff too. But that was all to say.
Keep an ear up for the Dynasty Typecast coming soon to a podcast platform near you.
Yeah, I can't wait to, talk more about just the different platforms and the details behind it, because it's a new world for me exploring and getting all that stuff set up. And it's that's a whole other skill set to do. I luckily have the engineering background, so I can edit it and master it and all that stuff myself.
And you can get
master
R&B,
it?
Yeah. Well, you're not supposed to?
No, I think I'm impressed.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm impressed.
I think I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Lint.
Want to bite a lint?
$8. Yeah, I can show you. I'm happy to show you what I do. I don't know if it's and I'd love to see what you do, because maybe you have a more streamlined version.
Doubtful.
No, I mean, we'll talk about it later. But and I guess we'll end by you dictate when we end, because it's your podcast. But congratulations to you. Truly, it's been we met you about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Or longer.
more.
It's been 2 years ago.
It was it's more than 2 years ago. Yeah.
Because it was Kickstarter mode.
It was in July-ish of
17.
Because I hadn't even done the Comedy Bunker yet.
Right.
And when I was starting it, our mutual friend Imran, shout out to Imran, introduced us. And he's like, yeah, you guys need to meet.
Yeah. And, but you had not done one stand-up set.
No, I hadn't.
And you just knew that you were getting into comedy. And to see how in 2 years...
Super inspiring.
You really just grabbed it and went for it, and now you're doing 10 sets in New York in a week. Like that's
wild.
incredible.
Oh, thank you. It means a lot.
And you know everybody, and you have a podcast, and you have a great life.
And you're having fun.
It is so much fun. Like so when I was in New York, I used to live there, and I was working in a recording studio, and my girlfriend at the time was actually a waitress at what is now the Second Comedy Cellar. It was the Village Underground. So I would leave the studio, I would go meet her there, and I would watch a couple of shows, get some free food, and then we would take the train home. And I feel like doing that somehow, like it's always been around me, like it implanted in me, and like people always told me I should do it, and that I didn't understand. Like until I meet like people like you and like these podcasts, like I didn't understand even how it worked. It just seemed like this thing that was so far away.
Sure.
And then you learn like, oh, there's like a business behind it. And then I met this guy, Tehran. He's a comedian. He's really funny. He does 2 nights at Laugh Factory a week. And he's like, let me take you around. And so he took me around all the clubs. He told me like how much you get paid for doing sets. And then I really thought it wasn't doable. I was like, oh my God, because I already had a family and stuff. But then I just kind of like, I couldn't let it go. And so I've started to figure out, and it's still scary as hell to think like, how could that be a full-time money-making career? Like,
but I think part of for you, and maybe it is a lesson for other people, is like when it's not the only thing.
Yeah.
Like there's so much, and when you're younger, you have so much more energy, and
right.
you can have
Less
the job
lose.
and have 10 roommates and this and that.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said for figuring out all the other stuff, and it's not giving in your career. If like when you're in your 20s, if I had worked and made 6 figures doing some consulting thing or accounting or whatever, I'm glad. Whatever. Dynasty Typewriter.
Let's end with a prayer.
All right, we'll end there, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.